Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, the climate guy setting the record straight about climate. In this video, I asked the question, are global warming alarmists scientists or are they dangerous psychopaths? I'm going to use one specific example, which was the global cooling scare of the 1960s and 1970s. Climate scientists have tried to erase the global cooling scare by claiming that it never happened. They said it consisted of 9 paragraphs written in Newsweek in 1975. Let's see if that story is true. I have hundreds of references discussing the global cooling scare from the 1960s and 1970s, but in this video I'm just going to discuss a few of the early ones. The first thing to realize is that there was no doubt in the scientific community that global cooling was occurring. There was dispute among experts about whether or not Earth would continue to cool, but there was no question that Earth had been cooling since the 1940s. This graph from the National Center for Atmospheric Research, which is the official government climate lab, showed that all warming since 1870 had been lost by 1970. NASA has since erased all of this post-1940 cooling because it was inconvenient for their scam. This is their current version of the 1974 NCAR graph, and as you can see, all of the global cooling has been lost. In fact, now they show a slight warming from 1940 into the 1970s. Now let's look at the Scientific American claim that the global cooling scare consisted of 9 paragraphs in 1975. This is the front page of the Washington Post from January 11, 1970. Colder winters held dawn of new ice age. That's the long-range weather forecast being given out by climatologists, the people who study very long-term world weather trends. Ice flows will continue to close in around Iceland. Glaciers in the Pacific Northwest will grow. There will be major changes in farming patterns and colder late-season football games. Murray Mitchell, head climatologist at the government's Environmental Sciences Services Administration, says the average world temperature has fallen about 1/3 of a degree centigrade since 1950. Remember that NASA has since erased this drop in temperatures. Here's another story from 1970 from the front page of the New York Times. U.S. and Soviet press studies of a colder Arctic. The United States and the Soviet Union are mounting large-scale investigations to determine why the Arctic climate is becoming more frigid, why parts of the Arctic sea ice have recently become ominously thicker, and whether the extent of that ice cover contributes to the onset of ice ages. NASA has quite predictably erased this cooling in Iceland. The green line shows measured temperatures and the black line shows what they report to the public. As you can see, the 1940 to 1970 Iceland cooling has disappeared. Going back to the 1970 New York Times global cooling article, scientists wanted to melt the Arctic by sprinkling coal dust on it. They thought that would save the planet. Now they say that melting the Arctic ice cap will destroy the planet. In 1971, the Washington Post had a front page story about a new ice age. The top scientists from NASA and the National Center for Atmospheric Research predicted an ice age by the year 2020. They blamed the new ice age on men burning fossil fuels and said that the ice age would flood the world's coastal cities. Now they say that burning fossil fuels causes global warming, which will also flood the world's coastal cities. So either cooling or warming will flood the cities, and both are caused by men burning fossil fuels. Obviously, these people are completely insane, but let's continue because this story gets much worse. In 1971, President Obama's future science advisor, John Holdren, and his partner in crime at Stanford University, Paul Ehrlich, said that burning fossil fuels was going to cause a new ice age. They also said that the new ice age was going to cause the Antarctic ice sheet to collapse, drowning the world's coastal cities. Now they say the same thing will happen due to global warming. Holdren's co-author, Paul Ehrlich, also said in 1970 that America would run out of water by 1974 and would run out of food by 1980. And a year earlier, he said that we were going to have to poison Africans in order to save the planet. Think about that for a minute. President Obama's science advisor's closest associate said we were going to have to poison Africans. That's pretty psychotic, but what was Holdren's real goal here? He wanted to choke off the U.S. energy supply. August 11th, 1975. Too Much Energy Too Soon, A Hazard by John Holdren. The United States is threatened far more by the hazards of too much energy too soon than by the hazards of too little too late. So global cooling, global warming, it doesn't make any difference. The goal is always to hurt the United States. It has nothing to do with science. National Geographic says that anyone who questions this junk science or questions the motives of the psychopaths behind it are engaged in a war on science. People in Congress need to stop pandering to these psychopaths and instead cut off their funding. They're very dangerous people. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science for a long time.